So to sum up really now, I just want to lay side by side our practical grades, so that's the grades in the room live with the examiner, side by side with the equivalent qualities of the performance grades. So practical grades, face-to-face assessment, examiner-led. Now shall we do the so-and-so? Would you like to choose this? It's something where the examiner, in a sense, takes responsibility for the flow of the exam itself. Whereas, of course, on the performance grade side, that is to be owned by the candidate. Once the recording starts, that is entirely in the gift of the candidate. No examiner is involved, no examiner is there. And it's a video upload which you submit when you're ready. Maybe a point on that, I think that begs the question, well, can I make the recording several times till I get it right? Absolutely. We only receive the one that you decide to submit. But a word against the notion that multiple recordings are going to necessarily get you where you want to get. We know that some people have said, oh, I've done lots and lots of recording, and it doesn't seem to get any better. Well, I think trying to perform over and over again is rather different from well-considered preparation for performance. And of course, practicing the whole thing is part of it. But perhaps it's not the best strategy to do multiple recordings with a view to getting the best one of them. But that's certainly a possibility if that works. So the practical grades require a kind of all-round complement of skills. We're assessing technical skills in the scales and arpeggios, we're assessing notation skills specifically in the sight reading, and when it comes to the oral tests, we're specifically testing oral skills. In isolation, each of those sections of the exam is independent of the others. Whereas in the performance grades, it's not as though those skills have gone away, and I want to be clear about that. It's not as though you don't need the technical skills, or you don't need the listening skills, or you don't need the notational skills. Of course you do. How are you going to blend and balance successfully if you're not orally aware? How are you going to play in tune if your oral skills are not able to support you doing that? How are you going to negotiate the fast passage work if you don't have the fluidity of technique to enable you to get through those scalic or arpeggio passages in the music? So what we're doing is assessing the same complement of skills, but as applied through the performance. The practical grades require all-round musical skills. Each section of the exam considers those as it goes through the sequence of events of the exam, the tasks, if you like. But in the performance grades, it's about a requirement for a sustained musical performance. So it's about musical communication across that canvas of 4 pieces or songs. Connected to that, in the practical grades, the skills that we're talking about are separately assessed. So we have 3 pieces of songs, then scales and arpeggios, sight reading, and oral. So in a way, each section of the exam is looking separately at the different skills involved. In the performance grades, those skills are assessed, but kind of as applied. And I think there's maths and there's applied maths, applied to a situation, applied science, applied technique. That's what we're assessing as we're listening to the technical delivery of a performance. And you need the oral skills to blend and balance, or to play in tune. And you're going to need the notation skills to make sure that you're faithful to the score, that you're keeping things accurate. So it's not as though those skills have disappeared, but they're being assessed in the background rather than separately through a range of tasks. So in a way, the practical grades are follow the recipe. Next this, should we do that or this next? There's a sequence and a call and response between the candidate and the examiner. In the performance grades, the responsibility is with the performer, with the candidate, to design the program, kind of design a menu, something that suits you best and shows your best in your best light. To some extent, you could argue in the practical grades, then there's a need for some sort of versatility, of interaction. You've got to do things in the moment. Now can I have D major separate bows? Now we'll move on to the sight reading and oral tests. That they all involve this sense of live interaction with what's happening in the exam and with the examiner. Of course, in the performance grade, that's not applicable. So it's more about the level of personal commitment and involvement, the ability to enter into the performance event and project outwards. On the practical grades, it's item marked throughout. And what I mean by that is that each of the 6 sections is separately marked, and there's no interaction between the different sections in terms of the assessment. However, in the performance grades, there's a blend. Yes, we mark the 4 pieces or songs out of 30 in that same way, but the performance as a whole mark, as I hope I've showed, is actually a holistic mark. It connects back to everything that's happened right through the programme. So there's a blend of item and holistic marking. Here's a shot of a couple of performance grade mark forms. I recognise that the writing's really small. It's not really for reading the comments, but just to sort of show you the key features of the output of the mark form that you get from a performance grade. And a few points to identify. Well, as you'll see, the titles and the composer of each piece is listed, and that will be listed in the order that it was performed. I mean, we're saying this is a curated performance, so therefore it makes sense that the mark form reflects that. At the bottom, you can see the performance as a whole comment on each of these, and a mark out of 30 for that. So in the middle column and on the far right-hand column, you can see a number of marks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 marks adding up, 5 threes, 1,550 total. And then I think we've got 2 different marks at the bottom there to just kind of iterate a piano and a singing exam.